Hello and welcome, listeners, to the Let's Talk About Grief podcast. If you followed or listened to previous episodes, you'll know I like to offer hope by sharing my guest stories with you. You get to hear how they have navigated their own grief, which can be both helpful and healing, knowing you too can move forward after a loss. If this is your first time and you don't know me, I'm Antidote, your host and author of Grief's Abyss. And this is part of my mission to help demystify grief. Welcome everyone to our show. In today's episode, we're going to be delving into the critical aspects of end-of-life tasks and estate preparation. While these may seem daunting or mundane, it's something, or it may be something you don't have any interest in yet. Please, before you press end and leave, I invite you to stay tuned for the insights into this very interesting and often difficult problem. It's inevitable, and you cannot imagine the profound impact it can have as we navigate grief and support our loved ones whilst doing the two planning sessions. When end-of-life matters are left unaddressed, families can face unexpected rifts and challenges, especially when the burden falls on the named executor to decipher the wishes of their loved ones. So I hope you're still with us and join my guest, Adam Zuckerman, as we explore this significant and thoughtful preparation and its role in fostering unity and clarity amongst difficult times. As I mentioned, our guest, Adam, he's a lawyer and a businessman who's had personal experience into this very topic. I believe it gave him the vision to create this online platform to support others. He is indeed the founder of Buried in Work and brings a wealth of expertise to guide us through the essential steps requiring the preparation of what's in front of each and every one of us. Welcome, Adam.
And thank you so much for having me today as a guest. It's an honor to be here, and I appreciate the warm welcome.
Oh, you're so very welcome. And I so appreciate you joining me to bring this very needed discussion out into the ethers, out into the zeitgeist, or whatever one wants to call it, because it is a very shied away from topic, isn't it?
It is, and it doesn't need to be. I mean, there are very few truths in life that apply to absolutely everybody. And one of which is that something will eventually happen to you and you will eventually pass away. That said, it doesn't need to be a scary topic. It doesn't need to be unapproachable. And by confronting it, by taking a few very simple steps, by getting your estate in order, and we can talk about what that means, you not only position yourself for more peace of mind, but you lighten the load for the loved ones and whoever comes after you that has to handle your estate.
Yeah, exactly. Curious to know, Adam, why do people shy away from this? I mean, we plan all kinds of things in our lives, from a trip to our weddings, to our births, to birthdays. What is it about end of life that seems to have people kind of grimace and may even press pause and leave our very conversation?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. The first is that it's a topic that, quite frankly, for a lot of people is uncomfortable because it is surrounded by grief and uncomfortable emotions. Oftentimes, as you get older, people that are older of you that you may have a relationship with, or even friends and family, may pass away, and that's not generally a happy time. And most people shy away from things that aren't necessarily happy or bring bad memories. But that doesn't mean that it has to be that way. I mean, there's many celebrations of life around the world that are, quite frankly, a lot of fun, which is an unusual thing to think about. And on the other hand, a lot of people shy away from things that they think they can put off towards later because, oh, it's not going to happen to me for a long time. I can deal with it at another time because there's more pressing issues in my life. Or the third reason, which I think is a big reason for a lot of people, is that they just don't understand what it entails and what the impact is. So I don't even know where to start. I'm just not going to start. And
Yeah.
what they need is a little bit of guidance to say, hey, it's not difficult. Hey, it's not a scary topic. Hey, you actually should be starting today because it'll make everything so much easier for you down the line.
Yeah, for sure. What are some of the challenges you foresee that families may encounter if somebody hasn't done the planning?
Well, the thing is, first, is you have to understand what comprehensive estate planning is. So
Okay.
typically, people associate estate planning and estate transition with the transfer of assets that somebody leaves behind after they pass away. But there's so much more to it than that. You should also be taking the steps of what happens to me if I'm incapacitated? How do I want someone to advocate on my behalf? What do I want to have happen in terms of legacy messaging? Who do I want to know first? Who do I want to come to my funeral? Who do I want to speak? There's so many
Mhm.
different things that get involved in that respect. Um, when you're gathering all of that information together, you really need to take a step back and say, what are my goals today and what are my goals tomorrow? Because an estate plan is designed for today to apply tomorrow, but has to be flexible for the future. So when you start thinking about all of this in a bubble, what people need to understand is that even if you don't have an estate plan, you actually do. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is everybody has an estate. And no matter who you are, if you have a very detailed estate plan with a will, a trust, or multiple trusts, and legacy messaging, and advanced directives, and all of these things bundled up, that's great. But if you have none of that, the government or the state, the jurisdiction where you live, has a processee in place that your family, your executor, your heirs, administrator will go through for those assets that you're leaving behind, as minor as they may be. And you might not know you actually have to file a tax return after you pass away. Kind of strange. But that's what people have to understand. Step one is that you need to start, you need to get organized. And above all else, even if you don't have an estate plan, you actually do. So it's better to take control yourself.
Mhm. A lot to unpack there. I'm going to
Oh.
go back to advanced directives.
Mhm.
So, if a parent or even your spouse or even a child gets sick and you're in hospital and you're being asked what life saving, what equipment, what do you want for this person? We can do A, B, C, or D, but the outcomes may be this. You've then got some very big decisions to attempt to sort of put your beliefs and what you would like aside and think about the person that you're being asked of. And that, if there's a lot of family members, can be very daunting because one sibling wants this, one person the next. And before you know it, there's a feud, I can only imagine, going on, eh?
And that is absolutely correct. And something that we want to avoid are those challenging conversations where people are arguing because they don't know what the individual actually wanted.
Yeah.
Now, advanced directives, if it's a new term for people that are listening, it can mean different things in different places. High level advanced directives are an umbrella term for describing your preferences about how you want to live if you're unable to communicate them on your own. So, for some reason, you're incapacitated, you're in a coma, you're sick, can't communicate. It sets out those guidelines exactly like you said, so the doctor can follow. This is what I believe should happen. Or your family members or whoever is in that position legally can actually say, this is what I want to have happen. Now, in some areas, there's specific legal documents that are created by the state that you live in or the jurisdiction where you live in. It has to be this specific form with these specific characteristics. In other places, it's more general. It can be a living will that's non-binding. It can be a healthcare proxy. It can be power of attorneys, medical in this instance. That's not financial. A post, which is a portable medical order, also called a most in some areas. But what's important about the takeaway of an advance directive is that if you have them, you have to communicate it to the individuals that can represent you and advocate for you.
Mhm.
Because if they don't know that it exists, then for all intents and purposes, they don't. Second, you need to communicate with them what it actually means and what you are desiring. Because I'm sure you've been in this situation before. You say something or someone says something to you, but your interpretation of that message might be a little bit different.
Yeah.
So get that meeting of the minds. And then the third thing is make sure that they realize that even if they don't agree with your decision and what you want, they're going to carry out those decisions and wishes because they're in the
Mhm.
position to advocate for you. And you want them to be your advocate, not the advocate with their desires for you. So those are the three
Yeah.
rules of advanced directives.
Yeah. So, as you can imagine, listeners, we've brought up a number of topics right at the very beginning. You can begin to see some of the paperwork that you may be facing. Now, you mentioned that if there isn't a will in place, I know in Canada it's called probate.
Mhm.
And for us here, the families have to give all the information to the probate person. And very often there's a fee attached to that that has to be paid up front before you can even access any bank accounts, if there are any funds in them, or anything that that person has left behind. Now, I don't know if it's the same in the States, Adam.
Yeah. So it's interesting. In the States, there is the probate process. And what probate is, and I'll say this in air quotes for everybody that's listening. Imagine me doing air quotes right now, is the proving of a will. And what that means is that you'll take the will, or if there is no will, there's the intestate process in the United States, likely something similar in Canada, where you take that document to the court and you say, this is the valid will. I am proving it to you. So this is what should happen to the assets. And there's advantages of having a will or having a trust and privacy and tax benefits and other things that get involved. But the process of probate, a lot of people think is this negative connotation of, oh, we don't want anything to go through probate. That's not necessarily true. A large estate that goes through probate will take longer and have more hurdles and steps you have to take. But in some jurisdictions, there's simplified probate for estates that only have a certain level of assets. And there's also a great deal of steps you can take to reduce the size of your estate and minimize what assets have to go through the probate process while maintaining control over those assets. It's pretty neat how you can plan. And that's one of the reasons why you should start organizing your information early, because the average time frame in the United States to administer an estate is 570 hours.
Gosh.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Anne, but finding 570 hours is not easy for a lot of people. So if you can take these steps today to start getting organized, a lot of the time that goes into administering that estate, whether you're the executor or court appointed, whoever that might be, the administrator, is by organizing your information and setting up a system and a process. So in the event something were to happen to you, people don't have to go start searching for information. Your estate is left in a state that people can just pick up and accomplish what they need to accomplish.
Yeah. My goodness. Just thinking about those 570 hours, you're right. We were just talking before we came on air that you would like 7 hours more in your day, let alone all those hours. And I like to preface that with you're in grief,
Mhm.
and making decisions when you're grieving can probably double that amount, Adam. I'm sure you can attest to that.
Absolutely. And it's not just that, it's the echo chamber that you're in. Because while you may be the administrator, you may be a beneficiary of a will or a trust. There's everybody else that's getting impacted by this process as well. So tensions can be high, emotions can run high, conversations can be charged. And if there's an ability that you can make that process simpler, you should do that. We have a On our website, we have a lot of resources, so checklists, guides, over 2,000 articles or nearly 2,000 articles, more added regularly. And what we found is that a lot of this information is actually available for do-it-yourselfers. You don't need to hire a service professional to help you with this. You don't. It's
Mhm,
just time. It's
mhm.
education. There's also products that are available if you want a little bit of hand holding. Um, And that's up to you. But the thing is, you have to start somewhere because if you don't, you find yourself in that situation where you're learning things in the worst time possible to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah. We are fast approaching the baby boom generation.
Yeah.
And for the majority of them, they're in retirement
Mhm.
and they may be considering transferring their wealth. I believe we are probably the wealthiest generation to date.
Yeah. And that's not just
And
because of inflation. Every single day in America, 10,000 Americans turn 65. That means by the end of the decade, there will be more people 65 and older than under, which I thought was very surprising. It
mhm,
means that we are about to see a doubling of the people in the country 65 and older. And that leads to the largest transition of wealth in human history, which some people are estimating to be between 70 and 85 trillion dollars of wealth. It's unbelievable. And
yes.
with that transfer, the question is, what do you do? And we need to make this process a lot easier for a lot of people. Now, my personal experience, my father passed away from cancer. I was named the executor of his will. I'm an attorney. I have an MBA. I was positioned well in the family to take on that role. My sisters definitely helped out and contribute in many, many other ways. It's wonderful. But I helped and stepped in with my mom to manage the estate. And what I quickly realized is that she was in a more traditional family relationship that I may have imagined, where my dad did a lot of the finances. She still was
Yeah.
informed, but she didn't really have a true understanding of this is the account that this bill is paid from, but rather we have accounts where bills are set up automatically. And when I started looking into to how to educate her and to help transition things over to her so she had more control over everything, I learned that in America, on average, women outlive their male husbands by an average of 5.8 years. And that may change in the next generation, but that's where that stat
Mm-hmm.
is within the last few years, which means if you're in a family with traditional family values, and I don't say that, mean to say that's everybody, there are plenty of women out there that are far more capable of doing the family finances than their
Yeah.
male husbands or partners. And that's a wonderful thing when that happens. The reality is, though, that there are a lot of women that are going to find themselves in very challenging situations if their husbands that has been picking up this role pass away. And we
Yeah.
have to empower every single person that finds themselves in that situation to learn about it now and take control
Mhm.
of it now, because waiting is only going to cause problems for everybody.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you should say that. It just seems to be air quotes again, the
Mhm.
male. That's what males do. They take charge of the accounts.
Mhm.
I'm sure, as you mentioned, women are very capable of doing it, but we'd
Absolutely.
rather spend our time doing something else.
And I think this statement is you're unique just like everybody else. Your relationship is special and between two people or however many people are in the family that get involved in finances. It doesn't have to be traditional family roles. What I would say is that even if somebody is in the position where they've been paying bills, it doesn't hurt to say, listen, I need a list of every single account that we have. I need a listing of what bills we have. I need to know how they are paid. I need to know if they are important. I need to have an understanding of where you've lived for unclaimed property searches. I want to have an understanding of our financial assets, our liabilities, our business interests. You even want to
Mhm.
gather your family information that includes your pets. What happens to your pets if something were to happen to you?
Yes, yeah.
Where your tax returns are, who helped you with those tax returns, if somebody did help you. Do you have any insurance policies? Do you have retirement accounts? Who are the beneficiaries on those accounts? There's so many things that will help just transition all of this information. That's actually what our estate preparation package does is it organizes all of this information for you. It won't create your will, it won't create your trust, it won't do the estate planning, but it will give you a snapshot and a repository that you have all the information you need in one place. So if you decide to then create a will or decide to engage somebody to help you with a trust, they have all the information or you have all the information that you need to really make that an efficient process.
Okay. So the platform Buried in Work
Mhm.
actually came out of your own experience.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. My father was at my house. We were doing some woodworking in the basement, and he walked up the steps and he said, Adam, I'm tired. And then if you say you're tired, if I say I'm tired, typically that means we need to go take a nap. But when my
Mhm.
dad says it, red flags, fireworks go off,
Yeah.
adrenaline starts pumping. And the reason why is that 6.5 years prior, he was diagnosed with leukemia for the first time, blood cancer. So when he says
Hmm.
he's tired, it means there's something actually wrong. I need to go to
Yeah.
the doctor. So he goes to the doctor and they do some tests and then they check him into the hospital on a Thursday, I believe. And 12 days later, he passes away. So
Mm.
far too quickly. And we got to say
Yes,
goodbye,
yes.
which is a good thing. Over the 6.5 years that he had after his first diagnosis, he was able to meet my nieces and nephews and build a relationship with them. They're younger, which is wonderful. So it wasn't
Hmm.
an instance of he had a heart attack and just dropped dead and something happened.
Yeah.
So we had some information organized. But when I started hopping in and really understanding what needed to take place, I realized there was a lot that was just missed because he hadn't gone through it and hadn't prepared it from the lens of myself or my mom or my sisters. It was he knew what the recipe was. He knew where the files were. And the
Okay.
answers to my mom and to myself, to my sisters of don't worry, the files are in the computer, didn't really help that much.
What's the password for the computer?
Exactly. What's the password for the computer? The password has changed. Where is the computer? Where is this file that the computer references? So many different things. So I
Yep.
started taking really detailed notes on what I was learning, what I was doing. I created templates for myself. So, oh, he has another bank account that I found, or oh, there's a credit card company. Here's the cut and paste. That it just simplified things for me. And when I
Hmm.
met with my mom's financial planner at the end of the conversation, she said it was the most organized and comprehensive transition she'd ever come across.
And that
So,
was just through, would you say that was your lawyer lens? You were kind of attention to details or your business
I think
acumen?
I think it was probably a little bit of both with some OCD on top of it. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
Um, I just like to be organized, and when it comes to things like this, it helps a lot. There are many tasks. It's not the only thing that I was doing at the time, and I just wanted to have a record. So in the event anybody said, "Oh, what happened to this?" I go, "Oh, well, on row 432, we called them and said this." So she mentioned at the end of the conversation, the financial planner, that it was so detailed that I had to give it away to other people. And
Mm.
on the one hand, I'm going, I don't know. You're probably just saying this because you're being nice and complimentary because you want to have a relationship with me too. So I don't move the money to someone else or encourage my mom to move the money to someone else. On
Yeah.
the other hand, yeah, it's kind of organized. So I showed a few people, and overwhelmingly, the response was, Adam, this is detailed. You really should just put this up online. You know how to code. I know how to code a little bit, not a lot.
Hmm.
So I spun up a website. I threw a bunch of resources online and I posted to 3 websites: Nextdoor, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And within a week, we had over 10,000 visits to the site, which
My
was
goodness.
astonishing.
Yeah.
And Buried in Work was born. So we thought it would be a blog post or 5, a few pages of resources, links here, 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 and here. We recognized that there was a need. And the next thing we knew, there were more and more people reaching out to help, to offer resources, to consult, stories of people asking, oh, do you have this? Do you have that? Like, one example is a friend of mine's mom was in the hospital. She had fallen, hit her head. She's okay now, getting better. And the waiting room had 2 women in it sitting next to my friend. And he overheard them saying, I don't know how to close down an account with Amazon. They won't talk to me. The person's in the hospital. They can't do anything. He's not going to make it. I'm paraphrasing. We need to shut
Yeah.
this account down. This is ridiculous. What do we do? So within 4 days, we had a list of close to 85, 90 companies that we had reached out to and heard back that outlines what to do in the event something happens to somebody with that company, how to close the account. And that's online for free for people to find. So
Yeah.
we have resources like that. We have the requirements for wills and states. We have introductory things. What is a guide um, for an introduction to wills and trusts? We have funeral and end of life planning for, I think, 9 different religions and belief systems. ChatGPTs too. We have
Hmm.
checklists, 25 of them, I think now, from how to choose a casket to what you need to know about, you know, many other things. I can load up the list, but it's not really that important. And the neatest thing that I have on the site that I think, and I'm going on a tangent, Um, it's a card game. And people are like, card games? What do you mean? But it's a card game called One More Story. We have two card games, but the one I like the best is One More Story, where it's 126 card prompts of tell me one more story about, or what's one of your biggest memories, your favorite memories?
Mhm.
What's something I didn't know about you? What's your favorite food? Like the things that you really want to know about somebody to capture those stories about them growing up, because once
Yeah.
they're gone, they're gone. And it's been a game that's been very well received. We're talking to hospice companies and people are buying it for road trips. Somebody even said that they took it on a date, which I thought is great. Uh, that's
Until people say, "Where did you get this from?" Oh, an end of life
yeah.
platform.
And they go, oh, that's fantastic. Now we know that we're in it for the long term. Uh, but long story short, we're developing a lot of resources to help people out. The website's buried in work, and everybody can come and check it out. Yeah.
It sounds so comprehensive, and I just love the fact that this is a legacy that your dad gave you just
Yeah.
by your willingness to want to be so organized.
My friend Eric, he knew my dad very well. He said that there is nothing that would make your dad happier knowing that you are helping people and making money off of his death. And if I can turn this into a full-time profession for me, it looks like it is now.
Yeah.
I think it is a wonderful testament to my dad. I am happy for doing this. I don't have to travel as much. I was on the road quite often for previous work. And the inbox that I have and the conversations of people just thanking us for helping them, it's
Hmm.
cathartic. And at the
Hmm.
same time, it's also pretty hard because every single day I'm reminded of the loss that I went through. I mean, the camera that
Yeah.
we're recording this podcast on today is my father's DSLR that I inherited. Um,
Oh,
so literally, like, I come into my office and I have conversations, and there's the normal grief that people go through. Like I drive to Home Depot or I run an errand where I would have typically called my dad just to talk. That's there, but every
yes.
single day there's this. And the neat thing about it is I have a friend. His name is Brian. Maybe he's listening, and he told me one sentence that I will probably never forget. And he said, after my dad passed away, Adam, it will not get better, but it will get easier. And I think that buried in work, I think that everything that I'm doing right now, I think that helping so many people and developing resources to do that in a more efficient and more engaging way really helps that process.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And it sounds as if we all like to take control. And by taking control of end of life decisions before we need them, can give the whole family some element of control at the end whenever this happens, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. And on the side of our box, the estate preparation package box that everything comes in,
Yeah.
we have a quote. And this is from the former deputy director of technology or former CTO. I forget his exact title at NASA, who reviewed stuff. He said,
Hmm.
leave your heirs the gift of organization. So, Jim, if you're hearing this, I'm referencing you. Sorry for butchering your title at NASA. He was on the planetary team and in charge of some really cool stuff. Uh,
Oh my God. Oh, I love that. So this
yeah.
is on the side of the box, and the
Yeah.
box is black, and it's like a suitcase, isn't it? You're
It's
buried in.
navy blue. It's
Oh,
dark,
it's
like
navy blue.
it's dark
Yeah.
navy blue. We specifically didn't want to go with black. We didn't want to go with brown. And inside it, we have two binders. So one binder is blue that stays at your house. That's your estate information binder. And then we have a bright orange binder with a medical symbol on it that
Mm.
has your key contact information, summaries of your end of life documents like a will, your end of life plan, your trusts, legacy messaging, key contact log, so that can come with you to the hospital, because there's also a section for medical records and things of that nature. So
Mhm.
you take that with you, and the doctors have everything they need. Your family has everything they need to plan things, and then everything can go back together. So that's the estate preparation package
That's the
in a
estate
nutshell.
preparation. Now, you mentioned that you go into the burial part because that's another piece, isn't it? Do you
Yeah.
want to be cremated? Do you want to be buried? Where?
Hmm.
Where do you want your ashes scattered if cremation is what you choose? What do you want? Who do you want
Hmm.
to
And it
be
goes
invited?
it goes beyond that. It's also, have you already purchased? So there's insurance called
Mm,
pre-need insurance. Do you already have a plot? Is the funeral paid for? What do
yeah.
you want to have happen? And then it's an ability to update that as you go along. And what a lot of people, they don't want to make this decision because they think it's final. But as long as you're still alive, your decisions can change.
Yeah.
So make it easier, because the last thing you want is family members and friends making decisions for you. And quite frankly, even if you think that they're capable of doing it, which most people are, they'll figure it out because they have to.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's just easier for you to make that decision for them.
Ahead of times, yes.
Yeah.
I can speak to personal experience when you are faced with the funeral director sitting across this very large oak impersonating desk,
Mm.
and you're sitting at the other end and you're being asked, I believe it's something like 87 questions. You're in deep grief. Can you imagine how long that interview is going to take place?
Mhm.
So, if you can have all these questions answered, then
Mhm.
your executor doesn't have to go through this process.
Exactly right. And that interview process, it's structured oftentimes, but it's intimidating. You don't know what the finances are at the point in time. You can save money, you can spend extra money, and it's complicated. And there are a lot of different funeral homes to choose from. You have the ability to choose a funeral home. You can even have a home-based funeral service, and then they're interned somewhere else. So figuring out all of these things beforehand, it's
Yeah,
just it's a better process for everybody again. Yeah.
for sure. And I've heard you mention that you have choosing a casket, that you have information on that, because that is an experience that I really don't want any of the listeners to go through, because you're faced with this room full of caskets and you want to do the best that
Oh, I
you know.
disagree. I
Yeah.
disagree. If you're going to plan it early, go to the funeral home that you want. Tell them you want to get in the casket. See how they react. It doesn't need to be an intimidating experience. So
Okay.
you can choose basic casket, just a pine box. You can have ornate caskets that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Many of the caskets you actually can't get into because they have one sample and then you choose the trim around it. But this doesn't need to be a challenging experience. You literally can have fun with it. And I'm not sure how many funeral directors you've spoken to. I've had the experience now to speak with several. Their senses of humor are absolutely fantastic. They are very reserved because that's oftentimes the macabre environment that they're in.
Hmm.
But you can go in and say, listen, I want to get this taken care of. This is what I'm looking for. And you can find that match that meets your personality.
Yeah.
Um, and you can learn a lot of neat things. Like, did you know that you can rent caskets for the funeral, which is
Okay.
different from the casket that you are actually buried in? So
Mm.
instead of spending the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, there's a system where the end folds down effectively and a new liner is put in for each person. So it's not like you're sharing it with someone else.
Yeah.
And then you're transferred to something else. So you have the funeral experience that you wanted or your family members wanted with a bunch
Without
of
the
cost
ex.
savings on the back end.
Yeah, yeah. Where I was going with that intimidation is you don't want to appear cheap. So
Hmm.
do you go for the one that's on the top shelf that's
Yeah,
probably 20 plus grand, or do you choose the one in the corner that might be more in your price range? That is where I was going
understood.
with
Yes.
that one.
Yep. And when you are making these arrangements beforehand, you have a lot more time to identify and determine what makes sense for your specific situation. Expensive, inexpensive. You can even pre-order caskets for you. So they are mailed to the facility. Um, it's a wonderfully intriguing industry, like absolutely wonderful.
It sounds like you've fallen down many rabbit holes from just gathering all your dad's information. Here you are telling us all about the casket, and I think that's incredible. So thank you. Enlightening. Who
Yeah.
knew you could rent? Who knew you could even order online? I'm sure Amazon will deliver it.
Eventually, yeah. There's There's a lot of nuances that people can uncover. And the question is, how detailed do you want to be? The
Yeah,
step one is organize your information. Step two, tell your loved ones that you have so they know where it is. And step three, engage service professionals where you need it and then update it regularly. That's
yeah.
it. Those are the steps.
That's it. Sounds easy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Um, the sandwich generation, because we mentioned that so many of the baby boomers are now retiring. So there's the generation coming up. They're uh, busy with their own families. They've got careers and they're taking care of mum and or dad, and they don't even live in the same states.
Mm-hmm.
And they just know that death isn't readily spoken about because that isn't something that was invited into the household.
Mm-hmm.
How would you, what advice can you give somebody in that situation that may want to have this in place, but has no idea how to begin to talk to mom or dad?
Yeah, that's a tremendous question and can be a very challenging conversation for people to have. The easiest way to have the conversation is to start the conversation, right?
Mm,
Because if you broach it once and it shut down, you can broach it again, but you never really know how it's going to go until you start. We've had a bunch of people come to us and say, I need help starting this conversation. I'm worried about my mom and what's interesting, or my dad. What's interesting is we have customers that are actually buying the estate preparation package and sending these resources to their parents, and vice versa.
okay.
We have parents that are getting it and sending it to their children as well. So we've seen retirement gifts and when somebody has a baby, when somebody buys a new house, like these are the core times to revisit. But for individuals who want specific help, there's actually a quiz. It's free on our website. It
Okay.
takes about 2.5 minutes to go through. And the quiz is, how organized is your estate? How prepared are you? So you can answer it for yourself or you can answer it for someone else. So take, for example, Anne, you're now my mom. I'm very concerned about you. You seem healthy now, but in 10, 15 years, I want to make sure that we don't have these difficult conversations then, maybe 30 years, who knows? So I'm going to go to the website and I'm going to say someone else's estate. And I'm going to answer a series of 10, 12 questions, answering, do I know where your information is? Do you have a will? Do I know who to contact? Things like that. And it'll give you a score, 1 to 10. And it'll say, you're
Okay.
doing great. You don't have to do anything, or you need a little bit of work. And with that score, you can go to your loved one, or I could bring it to you in and say, Mom, I have a problem. I took this quiz. I'm kind of concerned. I think that we can do a little bit better. Let's start. And
Okay.
if you want even more help, that quiz is embedded on a page on our website. You can go to it from the resources menu. It says start the conversation with your parents. And then there are
Oh,
cut and paste answers that you can cut and paste in an email or a text message or read on the phone that says, Mom, Dad, I did this quiz. Here are the results. I would like to talk to you. So we've made it
mm,
really, really simple for you to start that conversation. And maybe you'll be
okay.
pleasantly surprised and they'll go, Oh, I've already done all this stuff. And you go, Great. Or you go, Oh, well, you've done a lot, but this list here says that we need a little bit more. Or it's, there's a lot that we actually need to start focusing on. Let's make some time.
Okay. So you've actually got some script for people to follow.
Mhm.
You've thought of everything.
We've thought of a lot. And it's
Yes.
not everything. I mean, there's certainly a great deal of work for us to do. Fortunately, we're partnering with some great organizations, and there's a lot of people contributing to our resources. But what we found is that the questions and the feedback that we get. So if you are listening to this, anybody, please come to our website. There's a contact form on it. If you have an idea, if you have a suggestion, if you see something that you think can be improved, let us know because we want to make it easier on absolutely everybody.
Mhm. So, is there an actual cost for
Yeah.
your services?
It depends. So, like I said, there's a lot of free resources on the site. And then for
Okay.
people that would like the estate preparation package, for example, you do have to pay for it because it's physical materials that have to be produced. It's
Hmm.
customized for you. The card games, you can purchase them on the website. There's a physical cost for us to produce and manufacture them so you can purchase them. But the checklist you can read for free. The guides you can read for free. The directories, you can find service providers near you for free. The quiz, it's
Okay.
for free. Um, Our goal is to give information to people that are do-it-yourselfers. And then if you need a little bit of help, a little bit of guided approach, if you don't want to take the time to figure out how to organize everything yourself, then you can come to us and we'll give you those templates as a product or a service.
Okay. So going back to my sandwich generation folks,
Mhm.
um, they've got little enough time as it is, I can only imagine. So if they are to start now, it's going to save them 570 plus hours in the
It will
end.
save them a lot of time, and everybody's different. On average, we think that it will probably save 100 to 200 hours per
Okay.
uh, per estate, but that really depends on the unique circumstances. If you
Hmm.
have all the information organized, it allows you to take action and correct omissions. It allows you to make it so assets are protected, so family members reduce their stress. And in a weird way, if you think that in America, or in America rather, estate planning attorneys generally cost around $150 to $400 an hour. Now you can get packages for basic estate plans, $1,500, $6,000, depends on your attorney that you're going to and what it
Hmm.
entails. But if you have all of this information organized and then you bring it to your attorney, they have the information that they need and they are better
Okay.
prepared to serve you better. They will be more efficient. And if you're billing on an hourly basis, your rate will be reduced. So, in a weird way,
Mhm.
this package not only provides you that organization and that structure to leave yourself and your family in a better spot, but it actually
Yeah.
pays for itself when you engage with your attorneys. It's
Yeah.
neat. And attorneys
Wh-
love it too because it educates consumers before they come in the door. I know what a will is. I know what a trust is. I know that my will should have guardianship documentation. I've thought about this. So it makes their
mhm.
job easier also. It's a
Yeah,
win-win.
for sure. So getting organized has a financial dividend, if you
Yeah,
like, at
absolutely.
the end, because we're all going to need to go that route, aren't we? To
Yeah.
hire a lawyer to close up somebody's. You can't just walk in with the death certificate. That isn't going to do it, is it?
Yeah, most people hire an attorney. A lot of people don't. It definitely makes the process a lot easier when somebody else can walk you through it that has experience in it. But again, that goes
Hmm.
back to the question of the complexity of that estate. If everything has been arranged where your house was transferred into a revocable trust with a pour over will, where when you pass away, your assets automatically go into this trust and the executor already knows what to happen, maybe you don't need an attorney. But likelihood is that you had an attorney help you set all of that up. Now, if you don't have a lot of money, if you only have a shirt on your back, maybe you can do a simple will by yourself. There's requirements in your local jurisdiction, Canada or the United States. How many people are witnesses? Are they related to you? Are you of sound mind? How old? Does it have to be written? Does it have to be notarized? All these different requirements, and they change jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But you can do that on your own if you understand what needs to happen. And then somebody that you designate will then, or the court appoints, will then step in and administer that estate. But for most people, attorneys can be helpful, service providers can be helpful. We actually have a checklist. Here are the things that you should consider when you're selecting an attorney. Uh,
You even got a list for that. I love
yeah,
it.
we did. I'll load it up. Give me 1 second. Resources, checklist, facts. If people are listening, maybe the menus have changed by the time you're listening. Um, Questions to ask when selecting an estate attorney.
Okay,
So
isn't
there,
that amazing? So that's on your website as well.
yeah.
So just replaying this podcast can give
Mhm.
people, and take notes, can give people quite a comprehensive understanding of what may be involved.
Yeah. And for the sandwich generation that's listening, if you don't want to take the quiz, just send this podcast episode to your parents.
Well,
Hey,
there's a
mom,
novel
dad,
concept.
if you got the link to this podcast from your kids, they want to chat.
Yeah, NB. They definitely want to chat. That's what I wanted to come back to. The passwords.
Mhm.
How many passwords do we have, even to get into our online banking?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have a checklist for that,
Yeah, that's
Adam.
called your digital legacy.
Your
So
digital legacy.
it used to be that when somebody passed away, to figure out what happened to their accounts and what accounts they had, attorneys would say, watch the mail for a few months because if they stop paying their bill, they're going to get a statement. They're going to get a notice, and it all came by mail. Every once in a while, somebody would, send a phone call or call. Today, it's a lot more complicated than that because we have text messages, we have emails to access websites. Now you might need two-factor authentication. Those are those text
Mhm.
messages or those apps, those push notifications that come through. And it's really important to have an understanding of what happens to that because we all have phones now, or most people have phones. We have photos on those phones. We have accounts online, whether it be Facebook, LinkedIn, or the countless other stores that we do business with. And some of those websites have digital legacies. So in the event something happens to me, somebody submits a notification. That could be a copy of an obituary on an official site, or it could be a death certificate. Then there are instructions of what happens to that website's content. Does it get deleted? Does it get memorialized? And a whole host of other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So organizing all that information, making sure that the family members know where those passwords are, have the ability to get in. And then there's the physical ability and also the legal ability to get in is important. And
Mhm.
what we recommend, there's actually a discount on our website right now. We have a relationship with a company called 1Password, where it is a password manager. And in the event you pass away, you have a designated legacy that can access those accounts on your behalf. And so it just
Mm.
helps organize. But A, you should be using a password manager anyways, because it makes your accounts more secure. And B, it just makes that transition a lot easier. So think about your digital legacy also.
Wow. A lot to think about.
Yeah.
So everybody, before you listen, grab a cup of tea or a coffee and bring in a thick notepad. Because Adam, I think you've given us more than enough information. And if they don't quite get it, then buriedinwork.com. Is that the name of your?
Buriedinwork.com. It's a little bit punny, but that's intentional. Doesn't have to be
Yes.
scary topic. Just start
Yeah.
somewhere, but come find us, buriedinwork.com.
Okay. We've spoken about a lot. I'm going to give the floor over to you one last time, Adam. Is there something that you would like to share with our listeners that we haven't brought up?
I think that we've covered a lot, so I appreciate the insightful questions that you asked, Anne. I think the number one thing that people need to understand is that you're not just doing this for yourself, you're doing this for your friends and your family and everybody else around you. Your estate plan needs to be comprehensive to the point where if something were to happen to you, people can step in seamlessly to take over your affairs and help out. It's as if you literally just had a heart attack or went on vacation for 6 months and
Yeah.
disappeared forever.
Yeah.
That estate plan has to be flexible and you have to revisit it. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people and they're like, oh, I have a will from 20 years ago. That will needs to be updated because your circumstances have changed over
Yeah.
the course of those 20 years. So those are the big takeaways. On a non-process note, go have conversations with your friends, with your family, put down your phones, actually get to know them. Because the last thing you want to have happen is somebody passes away and you've missed out on those memories. You've missed out on those conversations that you really wish that you had.
Yeah. I really appreciate the card game to be able to capture those. So not only can they purchase the card games, but bring along your phones and record the
Yeah,
answers so that you've got them there
exactly.
for memories, eh? Yeah.
Exactly right, Ann. Yeah.
Adam, thank you so very much. I
Thank you.
think that's been brilliant conversation. And as you can see, we had lots of laughter. It wasn't scary as you thought it may be.
I'm petrified. I'm petrified.
Listeners, that indeed is a wrap, as I like to say. Thank you for joining us. And I hope that you've gotten some great insights and have a new understanding of planning end of life. Go ahead and do it. We'll make sure that we have Adam's information on the show notes so that you can follow him wherever he has an account. And I'm sure he's got passwords and they're all written down for his family. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, listeners, that indeed is a wrap. Be sure to follow us by clicking on the link, and you'll be the first to know when a new episode drops. And if you are feeling inspired, please leave a review. And If you are indeed grieving, please know you don't have to feel alone in your grief, but reach out. As a coach, I'm more than happy to chat with you on how coaching can both support you in your chaos and pain without forcing you to endure your grief-stricken world. You can contact me at ann@understandinggrief.com, or you can visit my website at Understanding Grief. I'm Anne. Bye-bye for now.